Kim, or Chicka Meow, or Kim's Crafts, whatever you know me from. I get asked all the time what tumblers should they buy when they want to start tumbling, what media, what grit I use, what is rock tumbling. So I decided to make this video to show you everything I use, how to use it, and just give some tips. So first things first, this is my setup, and I am not cleaning up anything because I'm going to show you the real life of rock tumbling. First off, I mounted this ring light onto the wall, and I'm leaving the tumblers on so you can hear just how loud they are. And it turns on and my phone clips here to record, but that's just extra. So these are my tumblers. This one's a Chicago Electric dual tumbler. It's from Harbor Freight, and I put these little tabs on there so that I can write which rocks are in which. This one is my newest one. It was sent to me by National Geographic when two of my tumblers failed, and they said it was an issue they were having, so they sent me the Pro one, and I actually love this one. And then I have the original National Geographic one and the newer one for this size, and I have had so many of them burn out lately. I think it's part of the issue, but these ones, the older ones, seem to run longer and hold up better than the newer ones. This one, it tumbles slow and you just take it off and on like that. And there's no speed, there's no gauge to tell you how long it's been tumbling. Like this one, you can change the speed and set the days, and it actually, I think it goes up to 10 days instead of 7. These go to 7 and you can't adjust the speed, and they tumble pretty fast. Sometimes you don't want your rocks to tumble so fast because it wears the grit down way too fast. And sometimes you don't want them to tumble too slow because it could take too long, but it's worked out. So next I have my grits right here and my tumbling media. I have, this one's the plastic that I only use for the polishing step. This is the one that I use for step 3. This is ceramic media. It's made for a vibratory tumbler, but I use it when I need ceramic, but I'm all out. And then I have the other ceramic tumbling media, but they're all being used right now in tumblers, so I'll have to show you that later. Plastic tumbling media is Roly Poly brand. I'll put the links to everything in the description, but it comes white. This is kind of grayish because it does turn colors after being used, even on the polish step. But it's these little pellets, and it takes them forever to wear down. I've only had to replace my plastic pellets once in the last year. And then this ceramic tumbling media, it comes in this jug. And get some out. It looks like this before you use it. And then after you use it, it wears down and it smooths out, and they wear away to completely nothing in time. And the same for the little white ones that I'll show you a picture of. This is not my picture, it's from Google, but you can see the different sizes of tumbling media here. The bigger ones look like they've probably been used once before in that picture, and then the smaller ones have been used multiple times. You can see how they wear down in size, and then they'll completely disappear into nothing. This one I bought at Harbor Freight when I got my tumbler, just because I needed tumbling media like fast, and Amazon was not fast enough. But the other ceramic I get and my grit is all Polyplastics brand. It's pretty cheap and it works really well. Like the tumbling media that comes with the National Geographic tumblers is terrible. It's just terrible, and their directions are really bad. It doesn't tell you to tumble long enough. It doesn't tell you what to look for when you're tumbling, and your rocks almost always come out terrible. They look ashy, like there's a film on them. You can watch my first rock tumbling video, it's on here, but they look like crap. So when I tumble, this is just a hobby that I started up during quarantine. I had a rock tumbler when I was little and I got bored of it because it took forever. And the results were just, I didn't really care for them. But I started up again during COVID. And what I do is I start with grit 1. You want to do 1 to 2 tablespoons per pound of rocks. So these are 1 pound tumblers, so I usually use 2 tablespoons. This is a 3-pound tumbler. I think both of these are 3-pound tumblers, so it just depends on how much rock I put in there. So I let the rocks always go for a week in grit 1, unless it's a very soft stone, then I usually check it sooner. But if they come out like this, where they're shaped nicely, not too many little notches or whatever, then I'll move them on to grit 2. Grit 2 I also do for a week, and sometimes after grit 1 for a week, they'll come out just looking jaggedy and not very great. So I will throw those back in the tumbler with grit 1 for another week and wait until they're smoothed out to my liking. Between grits, you want to rinse the rocks off as good as you can and rinse out the tumbling media. You don't want any of the tumbling media to get stuck in the rocks or in the tumbling media, because it can contaminate the next step and you won't be polishing them like you're supposed to. So after they come out of grit 1, I wash them off, and then I start grit 2 for a week. Usually I've not had to repeat grit 2, 3, or 4. So I do grit 2 for a week, rinse them off, use grit 3, and that's when I switch to the plastic tumbling media. And it's really just a preference. You can stick with plastic through all 4, you can stick with ceramic through all 4, but I do suggest using tumbling media because it acts as a shock absorber and it will stop your rocks from hitting each other too hard, crashing around inside, breaking, chipping, causing fractures, causing bruising on the stones, all different reasons. So, and it also helps them tumble a little bit faster and more even. So definitely get some tumbling media. So after grit 3, I like to do a wash cycle. And a wash cycle, I take this powdered Roma detergent. I put about a tablespoon in the tumbler instead of grit and fill it with water and then let that go for 24 hours. And when that's done, you start the polishing step. This is the final step. I put in about 2 tablespoons and let it go for a week. And then when it's all done, most of the time I like to use Ivory soap. It's just a bar soap. I wash this off before I shave it in there because, as you can see, grit gets stuck to it in my drawer. I really need to do something else with this. But I use a potato peeler and I shave it into the tumbler, add some water, let it go for 24 hours. This washes off the rocks, your media, and also burnishes your rocks and gives them a little extra sparkle. National Geographic has started selling this tumbling foam. It's supposed to be like a 5th step, and it's included with this tumbler here, but I've tried it and it doesn't do anything really. I saw no change to the stones. It just, I don't know, it's kind of like a tumbling media, and you could use it as a tumbling media, but I don't know, it doesn't have a purpose for me. So when you're all done tumbling, if the results that you get aren't what you were expecting, it can depend on the stones themselves, which I definitely suggest researching the stones, finding out their hardness level, finding out if you can tumble them, because some stones you cannot tumble, but most stones you can tumble. A lot of people will tell you that certain rocks are toxic in water, or you're gonna die if you put these rocks in water, but that's just not true. It is with some, like malachite and bumblebee jasper, but most stones you can put in water. Just don't drink the water. Don't put the water, like, don't rub it on your skin. Don't make makeup out of it. Don't, just use common sense. You don't want it in your body. But certain stones, even if they're not toxic, when you put them in water, the rocks may be damaged, like selenite. Selenite is just a very fragile crystal, and when it's in water, it will release shards. Same with kyanite. I've tumbled kyanite, and it was pretty much for an experiment. Crystalstore.co sent me some pieces purely just to tumble to see what would happen. We were just curious, and it actually worked out really well, but you do have to be careful. And then there's other stones like the hematite that I tumbled. You need to wear gloves when you're handling it because it does release a rust in the water and it will dye your hands red. But it tumbled just fine and I love the results. If your stones didn't turn out the way you wanted them to, it could be an issue with one of your steps. It could have been contaminated, or you could have not tumbled the first grit enough to where it was smoothed out, because if it's not smooth enough, grit will catch in the little holes and it will contaminate. But usually there's nothing you can do except for start over from step one and go through the whole process again. Or you can cheat and you can use clear nail polish, you can use UV resin, you could spray paint, or some people like to coat their stones in mineral oil, but that washes off and it wears off in time, so you have to reapply it all the time. And there's some stones like fluorite where you cannot use this polish in a wet polishing tumble. You have to do a dry polish, and that's when you mix ground corn cob. You mix this with the polishing grit, and you don't add water to the tumbler, and you polish them dry. You don't want them to go in water, and it polishes them amazingly. I messed up my fluorite because dumb me put it through a wash cycle, and I should not have done a wash cycle. If I wouldn't have done that, they would have came out perfect. Like I said, do your research with your stones. There's plenty out there, but not all information is true. There's a lot of spirituality websites or just people who claim that stones are toxic or can't go in water, things like that, and they're just repeating things that they heard on the internet. You just really need to do your research and see if other people have tumbled them and what their outcome has been. That's usually what I do, and then I look in depth of what happens if they go in water. Do they put off some kind of toxic vapor, which doesn't really happen unless you're diffusing the stone water or anything, or if I should be wearing gloves or anything like that. So one more thing, which is probably the most important thing, getting rid of your tumbling water. Do not put it down any drain, not the sink, not the toilet, none of that. What I do is after I strain my rocks and they go into these bowls, I dump the bowls into this bucket here and I collect it, and then when it gets about half full, I'll show you what I do. Don't mind the cone, I don't know why we have a cone. So once I dump it, I take my hose and I just spray out the bucket, and then I kind of spray the mess and spread it out throughout the rocks here. And it's all material that comes from the earth, so it's just going back into the earth. This does not harm my plants at all. If anything, it's helping them. You see how those are flowered and green? It's actually making my flowers bloom year round. I've got roses blooming in November, which is very strange. And it only started happening once I started doing this. And you can see those flowers are nice and healthy and green, and these are the same ones, and they're kind of dying off. These ones don't get any of the grit water. So I'm convinced that the grit water helps my plants. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any more questions, please post them down in the comments and I'll try to answer them either with a comment or I'll make a whole nother video with all of your guys' questions. Also, I'm gonna try to get compilation videos put up here with the whole process for each rock that I've tumbled in the past. Hopefully for some of you who don't have TikTok but like to see the rock tumbling videos, you can watch them here. I'm not sure when I will get these up because some of them have copyright music and I have to completely dub over them with voice overs and it just takes a lot of time. But I will try to get some up soon, and as always, thanks for watching. Bye.